Gracias, que to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making one of the most popular side dishes for Thanksgiving dinner, green bean casserole, except I'm not using any mushrooms or cream of mushroom soup. I'm also not using anything canned. It's going to be delicious. I mean, I am not a fan. I think just the sound of cream of mushroom soup is just not my cup of tea at all. I like creamy soups, just not cream of mushroom soup. And if you're like me, you're going to want to stick around for this recipe because we're going to make it in a creamy white sauce with lots of cheese in it. The beans are going to be perfectly cooked and tender. The whole thing is going to come together in just a little bit of time, and it's going to be delicious as always. Let's get started. So I started off with 2 pounds of green beans that I bought already trimmed and snipped in the bag from my supermarket. I like to take shortcuts and help from the store wherever I can, but do know that if you are getting that help from the store, it's going to be a tiny bit more expensive, but it's up to you. What do you want to pay with your time or the convenience? It's up to you. So I just take them out of the bag and try not to rip the bag open and have them, scatter all over the counter, because it's easier to cut them in half, which is what we're going to do right now. If you line them up together, so that way you get sort of even cuts. It's not going to be perfect, but just cut them in half so that way they're in bite-sized pieces. Nobody likes to get a giant string bean in their mouth. It's just kind of uncomfortable and hard to chew. So cut them in smaller pieces. Get a big pot of water boiling over high heat. I like to put 2 teaspoons of salt in there. You want to salt the water really well because you want your vegetables to be seasoned, and put the green beans in there. Let them cook until they're fork tender. I like them to be a little bit more cooked than other people, I guess. The only time I like crisp string beans is if I'm making a stir fry. If it's in a cooked dish, I like them to be a little bit more tender. So I cook them for about 7 minutes, but keep an eye on them and take them out when they're cooked to your liking. And then transfer them into a big bowl that's filled with ice cold water so it can shock them and stop the cooking process. And then you're gonna wanna take them out of that water and pat them dry with a towel because you don't want the sauce to be watery, right? Now it's time to make the sauce. Before you start the sauce, once the green beans are nice and dry, go ahead and transfer them into a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. I'm not using a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. Instead, I'm using this round pan right here, which fits about the same amount of food in there. And I am gonna also season the green beans with a little bit more salt and some black pepper. Okay, so we're gonna need a small onion. This is definitely not a small onion, so I'm just gonna use a portion of it. This much seems good. Onion adds lots of flavor, so don't skimp out. If you don't have onion and you have shallots instead, go ahead and chop up a few shallots. Okay, so I'm gonna cook the onions over medium heat once I get everything in this pot over here with maybe 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a little pinch of salt until they're nice and soft and golden. That's gonna take about 8 minutes or so. Okay, so the onions are done. Now for lots of richness. This is a rich dessert. It's not a dessert. This is a rich dish, but you are gonna be sharing it. So 4 tablespoons of butter. And I grated 4 cloves of garlic, so I'm gonna add that in here. Since they're grated, all you need to do is just warm them through. They don't need to stay in here for too long. Ooh, that smells so good. Now I have 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna cook it down for a few minutes until it gets nice and toasted. Okay, so that's done. I have 3 cups of milk here. This is whole milk, and it is straight out of the refrigerator. It's not warm or anything like that. Mix it as soon as it goes in. It's gonna get rid of those bits from the bottom of the pan, and it's gonna ensure that the flour mixes nicely. And you wanna season each step of the way, so I'm gonna season with a little bit of salt, some black pepper, some thyme, about a teaspoon. Thyme is so nice around this time of year. It's just so fall and winter. I don't know, it's just so nice. I love it. And nutmeg. If you have fresh nutmeg, you could grate a little bit of nutmeg right in here. I'm just gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon. Too much nutmeg is just not good. It makes the sauce kind of bitter, and I don't like that flavor. Just go ahead and mix this, and we're gonna cook this over medium heat until the sauce begins to thicken. All right, so the sauce is done. Once it begins to boil, it's gonna start to thicken. And although it's not gonna look that thick at first, as it sits, it does get thicker. And if you've noticed, I went ahead and I just washed that 9 by 13 inch pan because the round pan that I had was really big and the sauce was not gonna be enough for it. So I just transferred the beans in here. I'm gonna pour the sauce all over the top. Yummy, it smells so good. And honestly, I think I would make a little more sauce. Maybe a half batch more would have been better. But I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese to this now. Again, when the sauce is done, go ahead and taste it and adjust the seasoning if it's needed. Toss the beans in that sauce. You wanna make sure that the string beans are very well seasoned. They have no flavor if they don't have salt on them. So don't be afraid to season your veggies right. That's where all of the flavor is, and all you need is a little bit of salt to do that. So you want to make sure that the water is seasoned that you're boiling them in, and once they come out and you put them in that cold water, it does kind of wash them again. So you want to season them once you dry them and put them in the pan. Oh my gosh, this smells so good. Okay, so the sauce is really thick, so I have some chicken broth here on the side to thin it out a little bit because it is going to continue to cook in the oven and thicken a little more. So I'll put around a cup of the broth in here. If you want to keep this vegetarian, leave the chicken broth out and either add some more milk, or if you want some more richness, you could add some half and half, or vegetable broth. Any of those will work. And I'm gonna add a few crushed red pepper flakes in here because we love them. And if you want some more stringiness, you can put some mozzarella cheese on top. Options, we give you lots of options. Okay, let me taste this now that I added the stock. That is honestly delicious. So flatten it out in one layer. Okay, so you want to make sure that the oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to go in and bake uncovered for about 30 minutes or until it's nice and bubbly. Now, once it comes out, I've already bought some French fried onions because I don't want to stand here frying onions when they're perfectly delicious from the store. If you like to make your own, you can go ahead and do that. And then I'm just going to sprinkle the onions on top. If you prefer a breadcrumb topping, then what you're going to do is take about 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. Panko is my favorite type of breadcrumb. Get them unseasoned and then melt some butter and just toss them in the butter. And if you want to put some oregano in there or some rosemary, toss that all together, and you could put it on top right now and bake it in the oven with the panko breadcrumbs. You can do that, but I wouldn't put the onions on top, the French fried onions. They're just gonna burn. I'm gonna bake this for 30 minutes. Once it comes out, I'll show you what it looks like. So my green bean casserole is ready. As soon as it came out of the oven, I took it out exactly after 30 minutes. I sprinkled lots of the crispy fried onions on top, and this is what my bag looks like. They sell them, I got mine from Costco, a really big bag. They were sampling them on top of salad, and it just tasted so delicious. The ingredients were pretty clean, so I just picked one up and brought it home. But if you're in America, Trader Joe's probably carries a good, clean brand. So go, just buy them and just take the help from the store. You don't want to be frying onions. You're gonna have to fry a whole bunch, and it's unnecessary unless you really love to do it. Go ahead and put it on the plate and serve it, and it's really creamy. If you like more cream, you can make a half batch more and then just put it in there because it does tend to dry up a little bit. Delicious, perfectly seasoned. The sauce is creamy yet flavorful. The crispy onions on top just add that little nice hit of salty crunchiness that everyone loves. The exact measurements are on the website www.dimitrasdishes.com. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.